Hi, everyone. I'm Lynn with Cotton Art Studio.
And hi, I'm Brenda from Conquering Mount Scrapmore with Brenda. And today we're going to talk about color and color palettes and just playing with color.
Yes.
Lynn,
Yeah.
I when I saw your YouTube channel pulling out a box of Crayola crayons and start pulling out crayons, I thought that had to be the best idea to introduce color to people because we forget that a box of crayons has all sorts of fun things in it, right? So
Well, and think about it. That's probably where we really started when we were kids. Our first probably introduction really into, playing with color as a child was with crayons. So, and I think I've never lost that kind of play type of thing. Like I remember just growing up, my aunt and uncle owned a paint store.
oh.
So I think that I would walk by the paint chips and just stare at them and how these colors all went together, and then watching them mix paint. There's an actual YouTube channel or a TikTok channel where this guy just guesses people video paint being mixed, and this guy guesses and go, okay, that's got green and red, and I think it's gonna be and he'll say whatever color, and then they'll show it at the end. He goes, yes, I was close. And I think I've just been fascinated by that, since a kid. What paint color is this? Or
Yeah,
so
my parents gave me crayons and pencil crayons and pastels and paint and all this stuff too to
yeah.
and lots of blank paper. Not so much the coloring books.
Oh
All
yeah,
the
I think I had more blank paper. Yeah.
yeah.
That you were on your own. Just start,
And
you
my
know.
younger sister is quite the talented artist now. She's also got a YouTube channel. And you're gonna meet her at the Stitch Marathon.
Oh yay. Yeah,
Right?
I've talked
River
about the
City
Stitch
Studios,
Marathon, so I'm
yeah.
hoping people join us from our channels. That'll be really fun. I'm looking
Oh,
forward to it.
yeah, and what was it, the last Stitch Marathon? We forgot to do a door prize.
Oh,
Nothing. Like we forgot. So here she is quietly painting all day and she created a door prize.
aw,
And I'm like, wow, okay, yeah, so
that's
uh,
pretty incredible.
and it looks like a quilt too, and it looks like
Oh,
a really, very it's very eclectic and it's just lovely. But yeah. So anyways, now so you decided you'd do the Crayola box because that's where we all started with crayons at some point,
yeah.
right? But you've morphed this into some pretty mind-bending. I love what you're doing with the palette picking afterwards.
Yeah, well, okay. So I think, I took a color class on Craftsy or something, and this lady, she's talking about color with quilts, and she's using paint, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a great idea, but paint has the ability to blend, with other colors next to it, whether you're doing watercolors or oils or even acrylics. And fabric doesn't do that,
No.
and since I'm kind of into fabric, I'm like, we need to talk about how color looks with other in our medium, in our, fiber world, because we're not going to be able to. I mean, yes, we can paint on fabric and all that kind of stuff, but when we're just dealing with like traditional quilting and stuff, we're stuck with what is printed for us. And I think that I've worked at enough quilt stores. I've never worked full time, but I've worked helping out, on big sale days or something like that. And I've been in enough quilt stores that I think new quilters walk into a store that's got, like 3,000 bolts of fabric in it. And they're just like, I don't know what's going to look good together. And I can't pick out. And I think that that's just an overwhelming topic for new quilters. I mean, and we have all these classes of, this is how you sew a 1/4 inch seam, and this is how you do this, but we don't have classes of how to play with fabric and be safe about it. So those are kind of, I guess, my thought processes in, pulling, because when you're looking at a print, it can have 17 or 18 colors in it, and
Well,
then it's
what
not just one color. So how do we address that topic? And I don't know, I just thought, well, let's start with one color and see what we can play with.
The other thing too, because I teach quilters to learn, new quilters how to quilt, right? Whether
Yeah,
that's by hand or by sewing machine or
me
whatever.
too. Yeah.
And one of the things that I find that they go out and do, they go to a quilt store and they get the biggest stack bundle they can find, and they come home with it, and of course it all plays well together, except the work looks flat. But then they don't have a stash to draw from, right? So it's kind of like, okay, buy two that kind of maybe kind of work, but not really, and kind of, and then play with it that way, right? You teach them a lot about color.
Well, and I think that, okay, first, I think that fabric companies do this to help them out,
Yes.
with the jelly rolls and the layered cakes and the charm packs. But that's just one, designer's line. And it benefits the fabric company because then they're selling that line. But you just get this much of it, or you just get a strip of it, or even if you're getting a 10-inch square, it's just not a lot of it. So, what do? You're stuck with just doing those patterns that fit that, area kind of thing. And, I don't buy fabric that way. And this is the artist in me. I love those stacks of fabric. I have jelly rolls right over there that are stacked up that I've never used because they're stacked up. And here's why I don't use them very often is because every quilt that will look the same out of that jelly, it doesn't have that spark, that interest for
Yeah.
me. It doesn't have that little magic in it. And it was somebody else's color idea, not mine. And so I guess the artist in me wants to own the whole process
Yep.
and not be dictated by the fabric company or the designer. Not that I don't love and respect them, I totally do, but I just want to take a piece of what they've got and then add other pieces from other places that make it mine.
I'm the same way. When I buy those big, we'll go to trade shows and we'll buy those, a few big bundles like this, right?
Yeah.
I walk into a quilt store and I don't blink when I've spent $400 because, well,
Well,
I haven't gone shopping, but anyway, so
yeah.
but the big bundles like that, I take them apart and I disperse them into my stash by color, and they never see each other ever again. You know.
Every once in a while, I'll keep a couple of them together because I'm really liking how they live together. I may keep them together just because I've got a project in mind or
Yeah.
something. But I'm with you. I kind of disperse them throughout my fabric stash, which is organized by color. Um,
Yeah.
and there are very few that I kind of keep separate. Like I kind of keep all the holiday type of stuff together, because I'll be like, oh, I want to make a Christmas or Hanukkah or something, and I know all that themed fabric is there. You know what I mean? Sometimes the themed fabric doesn't, can compete. Although I have used, Christmas green in a spring looking quilt because it was the right green.
Yep. Me too.
You
I,
know,
I'm
I
pretty
don't have
similar.
a I don't have a rule around that at all.
I actually inherited a bunch of Christmas fabric from a friend who passed away, and I've got all the Christmas fabric now in one place. But everybody's getting Christmas quilts because it's an overwhelming amount that I now have. But
Sure.
I was putting in a little bit of Christmas in every quilt for, because that's the way I roll. So
Yeah, I do too. And I like, so I guess my whole thought process with this Crayola challenge or the crayon challenge was what is in my stash? What can I use? What could go together? And if I just start pulling a color and going, okay, how can I combine this and just kind of playing with that? And hopefully that's sparking ideas, that's making people look at fabric in a different way. And there's only a few times where I'm like, this didn't work. Not my favorite
I
kind
did
of
see
thing.
that one episode where you said you put it together and it should have worked, but it was just no.
Not me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And but I think that a friend taught me years ago, and I love this piece of advice, is if you are planning a new quilt, make one sample block with the fabrics that you want to put in it to see how it looks. And then, you've only wasted a little bit of fabric, and that can always be a mug rug for somebody or something. So it's never truly wasted. But like, I just think we're not playing with fabric. We're letting our world kind of say these are the ones that go together, and we're losing what we used to do
Yeah.
with just new fabrics and playing with them and seeing what they're going to happen with it. And so I like that. And I love patterns. So I think that that's the major difference between like a painter and a quilter, in that, I'll look at a fabric and it's got 18 colors in it. Now I've got a lot of places to go with that. That doesn't necessarily make it, it'll be mine. It'll be my creation of what I did with this kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I have a question for you. I have a question for you. So somebody that I get asked this, like, do you start with the fabric or do you start with the pattern?
Okay.
Like chicken or the egg, right? I don't know.
Well, one of the problems when I'm doing, like when I'm doing my quilt tops, I look at, okay, what am I being overrun with,
Oh, okay.
right? Because I mean, I get donations of scraps, and I get other, people, pass me. Well, so and so knows you make charity quilts, so I'm looking, okay, like I got like oodles and oodles of blue. I need to deal with the
A
blue,
blue fabric.
right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of something is dinging here, and it's just dinging and dinging. Maybe lint is not a recognizable device, but but I kind of pick stuff that, okay, I'm being overrun with my blues.
So I'm
Well,
gonna
now
make a
I
blue
make a
quilt.
quilt, right? But and I do make charity quilts, so it's like it's going to go somewhere where it's going to be loved, I hope, and but at the same time, it's like, yeah, when I'm doing a special project for a family member or whatever, I ask them usually what are your favorite colors, and then I start pulling from that. If they look at their shirt and they go brown, I know I'm in trouble because
Oh, I
they
love
don't have a
brown.
favorite color, and it's like, okay,
I agree with you. Like if I'm making a quilt for someone, I ask them, what's your favorite color? And then I don't want to know anything else, because then I'm going to create it from what I want to make. Because if you tell me I want this pattern, that's when I'm like, oh. So I'm probably fabric comes first for me,
yeah,
um, over pattern. Although I will say some patterns I'm like, oh, I want to make that block. I haven't tried that block. I wonder if I can, wonder what I can do with that block. And I do find myself working in series. Like the beginning of this year, I made like 4 double wedding ring quilts, 5 double wedding ring quilts.
right,
And it's like I just wanted to see what other fabric would happen with that double wedding quilt.
right.
So yeah. So I don't know. I go back and forth of whether it depends on what I'm interested in, I think, at the time.
Yeah, I
So
know it's for me it's like there's sometimes too it's like I get an idea and I think, ooh, purple and green and like will go really cool together if I go with this,
yeah.
and because I like those colors. I like the cool tones all together and I like the warm tones. And the other thing too, like because I have so many scraps, I can actually build a quilt. I just pull a box off of here and build a quilt. The one year I had asked my nieces what quilt they wanted, and they all came up with teal and black or teal and this because teal was the big color, and
It's the color. Yeah, it was the color of the year for several years.
I just wasn't tealed thrilled, you know.
I'm a little bit opposite you. I kind of live on the warm side of the color wheel most of the time.
Yeah,
So I would rather have the oranges and the reds and the yellows and then the yellow greens. I think I tend to be more in that
yeah,
world. And I really love, let's see, how do I move this way?
okay,
That purple behind me, right?
yeah,
There,
yeah,
that one. I really like that. The secondary colors. So orange, purple, and green are kind of my favorite color. I find that I drift to that a lot,
yeah.
just in my own,
Well, they're striking,
personal.
right? They're a striking pattern, right? They
And I think red, yellow, and blue, for me, are more, I don't know, predictable. Like everybody knows red, yellow, and blue, and they don't see as much green, orange, and purple stuff together. And purple's kind of hard to find. So it makes it a challenge to go shopping for purple. Yellow and purple are the two, like, probably rarest prints that you can find. And when you think about it, go to the fabric store and
Yeah.
look. There's not as many purples, there's not as many yellows.
Well, a lot
So
of
those are
people,
the
yeah, because a lot of people like blues and greens and stuff
blues,
like
greens,
that.
and reds.
Yeah.
Like those are your big. So I kind of I want to do the opposite. I want to pull, something that not everybody's going to see or everybody's going to be used to seeing. And I think I just, like, I'm all about, let's play with it. Let's see
Yeah.
what happens. So I've enjoyed just talking about and my husband's made fun of me. He goes, "You talked about red for like 45 minutes." Who
See, you
knew?
go the dinging there. Well, my husband teases me too. He says, you're on so dates so many times, X times a week, and he's like, and you're not bored? No.
No.
Heavens, no. Are you kidding me? Because, when you're talking with other quilters, I mean, you get all sorts of inspiration and all sorts of fun ideas come out and fun giggling. And like you say, you can talk about red for 45 minutes or,
Who knew? Yeah, I
yeah,
could talk about red for so long,
yeah.
or
And
any, what, really any other color. I mean, once you start playing with it, you're just kind of like, I think for me, every good quilt starts with the question, what if?
yes. And where I go, the blocks, so I take a traditional block and I go, well, what if I do this to it? Because you can take design elements and start changing and, and start rearranging stuff and coming up with totally different things, right? So,
Yeah.
and then you start playing with color in that block and wow, yeah, you just have fun, right?
It's amazing to me. Like I'm doing a stitch along that starts on July 4th. It's on my YouTube channel. And so I'm teaching people, and it's the quilt that I made originally is just solids. But so you get a new block every other week. And on the opposite weeks, I'm going to have a Zoom link if they want to join me. And I'm going to show a sample of that block using completely different fabric
Oh,
and
cool.
just see the difference and, talk about what you can do really quick or whatever. And I think that if you could learn, and this is my theory, and we're going to test it out. I believe that you can learn 13 blocks and make 1,000 quilts.
Yep,
Easy.
yep.
Easy. And then, like, then you have no limit of your design. You just are like, I'm always making a 10-inch or a 12-inch or whatever inch block. And then that just it'll morph itself into so many different things. I mean, so
Yeah, well, and yeah, like, well, the quilt behind me is 4 subunits.
yeah.
Right, and the other ones that that are going to be shown for the so long, I mean, they have a piece sashing around 2 sides of it, right? So it's kind of like, well, I removed the sashing for this one, and I mean, this one's kind of like weird, but I mean, I like
Oh,
it.
I love it. I think it's got a lot going on, and it makes and that's the other thing I think with picking, your own fabric and not necessarily just using those stacks of fabric or whatever. If you add a completely different color in, or if you add, 4 or 5 different fabrics in, you add sparkle, which will require the person to look at that quilt and their eye move across it. And that will just add more interest to your quilt, and make it stand out from the crowd,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, this one has got a lot of little pinks and orange floating around and throughout on the
And
blueprint.
that's just going to add, I think you look at quilts from 3 different spaces.
Yes.
Like when you go to a quilt show, you definitely look at them from far away and you look at the whole kind of piece together. And then you walk up to about 3 feet and you're kind of looking at the block. And then you walk up to the really close and look at the quilting.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know that you do that with any other artwork.
No, no, probably. Well, probably not. Well, if you're a painter would want to get right up there and see how the brush strokes worked and all this stuff. But
Maybe,
yeah,
yeah.
but quilts too, they make a very dramatic. They're very dramatic sometimes. Like when I'm looking at the red, the little red pieces the other way. Yeah,
Yep.
behind you there. That teal and red is just beautiful because it
That's
just
gonna
pops.
that's actually one of the samples that I'll talk about
Oh,
in the stitch along. Yeah.
oh wow, very
So
cool, very
you're
cool.
getting a preview.
You get a preview, yeah.
This is my real design. I mean, I'm sitting in my sewing studio, so that's my real design wall, and kind of what I play on. I I will say for me, like necessary thing to have in your sewing room is a design wall.
Yes,
Don't you think?
I have a design floor.
Well, yeah, yeah,
It's not so
that'd be
great.
tough.
Not so great.
I have dogs that come in and out, and that would mean
Yeah,
design mess up kind of thing. So that wouldn't work.
yeah. I try and take put it down on the design floor. Once you sweep all the stuff off of it, and then you put it down, and you take a picture right away, and then you start putting it up in piles, and then you sew it together, and you look at the picture that you had on your phone, and you look at the quilt, and it's like, why do I bother? Why?
I will say I did a really complicated quilt once, and well, last year actually. And oh, when I talked about orange, that video, you saw the New York Beauty quilt.
Yes,
It's
that was
got
beautiful.
72 blocks. It's overwhelming on how much stuff's going on in it. But that one I actually took pictures of each individual block, printed them out, and then arranged them in on a piece of paper, glued them, taped them down, and then took that, and that's how I sewed it together because I was very specific on how I wanted it to go together.
Right.
I've got to quilt it. That's my next step.
I think that's where I'm really good at like drawing out new stuff or putting colors together and all this stuff and then sewing it all together and then it goes in the room with my long arm and it's not in my way anymore so I don't have to deal with it.
I get distracted. Oh, look at that pretty fabric. Let's do something with that.
I know.
And this color thing that I've been doing, which I love doing, I have to admit, I've wanted to go, okay, time out. Because sometimes you'll hear me say, oh, something needs to happen with this. I really want to stop and go, this is what I'm doing, like right now. Forget what I'm talking about.
I
Yeah.
know, I know. I when I was digging through all of my fabric, you touch all of your fabric, digging through, looking for all your Christmas prints. Well, ooh, look at this, and it's like, oh no, no, stay on task, stay on task.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like no, and then you rummage through something. Oh, look at that would go great with no, no, stay on task, stay
Stay on task. Yeah, exactly.
on.
Exactly.
I think we all go through that, don't we? I mean, it's not just me. I'm sure of
No,
it.
no,
Yeah,
I bet everybody's watching this goes, yep, that's me.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
I think, although I do know some people that they just buy the fabric for the project that they're working on.
yeah. And then
I,
they donate their scraps right away.
I'm like, I can't do that. That's not how I work. But there are people out there that do work like that. So
Yeah.
it's not how I work. I need all the Marie Kondo thing where she was like, hold this, does it bring you joy? I'm like, yes, yes, it does. All of it. Stop. This is not being thrown away. No, I don't understand. Does this bring me joy? It's fabric. Of course it does.
That's right. Even somebody's donated fabric. You know what? I learned more about color playing in somebody else's scrap box. When you
Because
get
you're
a
like, why did they
donation.
buy this?
Yeah, you get a donation box and you sort through and you get all the cotton and all the stuff. And you start sorting by colors and it's like, ooh, that would be cool. You start seeing all the fabric that you would have not bought, not purchased yourself. But it's like you learn so much more about color
Oh, right.
and how to throw it all together and.
Now, okay. I will give you my answer to this, but my question is what amount, when you go to the quilt store and you're going to buy fabric, how much do you buy?
Okay,
Okay.
so my husband and I'm in Canada. So when I go to a quilt store in Canada, like I say, I don't blink when I spend X, but I don't go to the quilt store that often, right? So when we go to the States for 5 months, I will buy stuff that I think I will use in future projects that I haven't thought about yet. And so
Okay,
I'm
but
buying fabric that's cool. But I also
right.
clean out the quilt
But
store
how
so I
much?
get scrap bags.
No, my question is like you find this fabric. How much of that fabric do you buy? Do you buy a yard? Do you buy 2 yards? Do you buy half a yard?
If I absolutely adore it and can't live without it, I will buy like 5 to 6 yards.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm going to use it as backing and then scraps, right?
Okay, backing. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. If you're doing backing 5 to 6 yards, yeah.
Yeah, like if I'm, saying, oh, this could go with so many different things, or that could go with some, yeah, then I might buy 2 yards. But yeah, like a yard, but two, depending if it's on sale or not, too, right? Because I've
Well,
walked
yeah.
into
All that
quilt
being,
stores
yeah.
where they said, if you buy the entire bolt, it's so much a yard. It's like $6 a yard. Well, my husband's there and he just gets loaded up, and he's like, oh God. And he's walking to the the cutting table, not being able to see where he's going.
I buy if I like it. I've gotten to where I buy half a yard because fat quarters aren't enough for me.
Yeah,
So if I like it, it's like a half a yard. If I, love it, it's a yard. And if I can't live without it, or I think that it could be a border, I want 3 yards because that'll give me most size of any border is 3 yards.
yeah,
If I'm gonna make it I make a lot of tablecloths and napkins and stuff. Um, stuff people don't use anymore. I always have tablecloths on my tables,
so do I.
and I do napkins and table runners. And so, but if I'm gonna make a tablecloth, I need 2.5 yards. So that's kind of, so if it's a tablecloth, it's 2.5 yards, but
Yeah,
for my table.
yeah. So I still have tablecloths and all that stuff too, right? So yeah, I hear ya. Yeah, I
I
know.
love them. I love them.
I
And
took
I'm
a
like
long
that
time
you
to
just,
convince my husband that a table runner was a good idea, though. He's like, why? Why?
oh, you know why table runner is a good idea? Here's a tip. Um, put Intel Bright in all your table runners.
Oh yeah, you just
Then
drop.
you have a hot pad the whole length of the table.
Very true. Yeah.
So if you put hot pots or plates on it, then you just put it on the table runner, and it's got Intel Bright in it, so it reflects the heat off your table.
Yeah, that's why we have trivets. But anyways, yeah, like I guess
Oh,
that.
that way you don't have to have the trivet. It's just all the table runners.
Yeah,
So
that's actually a good idea. Yeah.
so I do that.
So, what is your favorite color combinations? I mean, what? Okay, if you only had one color to pick,
Orange,
orange. Yeah.
hands down, every day. Yes. In fact, I've been accused that I can't make a quilt without orange, which is not a true statement. But like my local guild people who know me, like they know I love orange. It's my favorite color. I buy tons of orange fabric. It goes with everything. I think it's the most underused color, which is fine because then I can have it all and y'all can just argue over the blues and the greens or whatever. But yeah, orange is my favorite color. One, I look good in it, so I'm attracted to orange because I can wear it well. But two, it's just, I don't know, I just think it's so pretty. And I like the warm side of the color wheel. So, and I think it goes with blue, it goes green, it goes with red, it goes with all of them. Orange goes with everything. Underused, and it's most underused color. I've never found anything I don't think it goes with.
I think mine would have to be purple. People, when I worked before I retired, my some of the staff would make jokes about my lucky purple suit. And it was like, you Brenda, you can do anything. You're wearing your lucky purple suit today, and it's
There
like,
you go. There you go.
I know.
It probably looks really good. I think we're attracted to colors that look good on us.
Yes.
So it probably looks really good on you, and that's why you like the color so much.
Yeah.
The color that I've struggled the most with is pink. Like
Really?
it looks horrible on me. I've got gold undertone in my skin and it just washes me out. And I've learned to work with it, but it's my probably least favorite color.
Hmm. Well, my least favorite color is brown. I struggle with brown.
I like browns.
I
I
know.
like browns a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, but I do struggle with browns. I have a heck of a time trying to wrap my head. Okay, you can put like all the warm colors with it, but some browns are cool based.
Yeah, they have gray undertones in them.
Yeah.
So they're going to look better with your blues or your,
I also
your.
struggle with gray because the gray can either be a cool gray or a warm gray, and it's kind of like okay, so you have to when you're in the store, the fluorescent lighting throws off the color, right? When you're that
Oh,
close,
absolutely.
and it's like okay, what color really is it? You know, so
Another tip that you can use, like when you're picking out color in a store, the other thing people don't realize is color gets all the credit, but value does all the work.
yeah, they do.
So I take a picture of whatever I'm getting ready to buy. If I think it's all going to go in one quilt, and I change it to black and white, and I can see what colors stand out. Do I have that dark, medium, and light? If it all looks the same gray, then I don't have anything that's going to pop the eye. So you've got to rethink about what you're pulling. And then sometimes if you buy a line of fabric, it'll be that medium range and it won't have the dark, dark or the light, light that'll help your eye to travel around the quilt. Because like the one behind me, you are forced to look from the center all the way out to the edge, like
Right.
because that it's a raspberry kind of red, and it just pulls you to the edge to give it that spiky look.
Yeah,
So I keep I keep moving the wrong way.
I know. The other thing about color value too is your people tend to get their stash, their basic colors that it's all medium after a while.
Oh
They
yeah,
don't have any real dark and they don't have any real light because they've used it already,
right.
right? So yeah, it's
Yeah.
like
So
everything
I
that's medium after a while, and you okay, well this isn't gonna work,
yeah
you know.
yeah. But I think that's like also just maturing in your quilt story. You know what I mean? Like in
Yeah,
your own quilting, you kind of go, oh, when I did this, this helped it, stand out more. And I think that's one of the reasons you want to make a trial block. Just make a trial block and go, okay. Because when I put that raspberry color in there, it really, you can see the fan blowing it. It really just added that. Although there is the raspberry color in the fabric, it's just so small, it doesn't stand out from a distance.
right.
So
But it does look like it all goes together. I kind of like red and teal together. That color combination.
totally 1950s.
I know. I
It's
know.
totally 1950s. That teal and cherry red together is very reminiscent of that decade. Just like that avocado green and harvest gold is all 70s.
I
And
know.
then you get into the neons, and then you're in the 80s.
Yeah.
Then you get into that grunge, dark, dingy look, and that's the 90s. We kind of divided ourselves into those decades. I mean, think 1930s is the little pastellies kind of
Yes.
thing with the little feed sack prints, and yeah.
But those were very endearing, right? When I bought a pack of this, retro reproduction 30s, and I showed the finished quilt to my mom. It was a baby quilt I was making, and my mom actually she said I sewed with some of that.
Oh
Like she
yeah.
was just like like she just thought it was the best thing ever, and it was like, no, mom, this is a new pack. She was just like, you found some of that in my stash? No, I didn't, mom. It's all gone.
Well, there are people that collect that stuff that are still finding the real deal.
Yeah, I know.
um it's harder to find, that's for sure, but yeah, I think it's just one of those. I don't look at any fabric and go, this is this decade, though. I always kind of look at stuff and go, this is this color.
Yes.
I don't, because I will use 1930s with a batik with a 1880s reproduction, or, those kind
Well,
of stuff.
the quilt behind me has got Civil War batiks, like everything. Other, including probably the kitchen sink in there. So.
I love that. That's my kind of quilt. The New York Beauty one that I did. My rule was I make rules for myself. Do you make rules for yourself?
Yeah, and then I break them, so yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, well, part of the fun of making the rule. So when I was doing that New York Beauty quilt, my rule was I had to have orange and green and purple in every block.
Right?
And then halfway through the quilt, I'm like, and now I need to have some kind of novelty fabric in each block, because I found myself trying to hide things in it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, the Jungle Book Disney fabric. I'm like, I'm an adult. I don't have kids. I have Jungle Book Disney fabric though, because you need it. I don't know why, but I need it. And so, like, now I'm trying to hide it into things so that, like when you look at the quilt, you're like, oh, wow, look, well, that's got Superwoman in it. I like
I
that.
saw a quilt block. It was a New York Beauty block, and on the spikes, they had the cast of the Big Bang because they
Oh, that would have been
the
good.
Big Bang fabric, and they had the
Yeah.
entire cast on that. And I'm like, you fussy cutted a big yard or fat quarter of fabric to get all of those faces on that fan wheel, and I thought, that
I
was
would totally
really
do that.
cool. Like, holy crap.
I would totally do that. I would. I have. I've totally done that. Yeah. So
I know. It's just a crazy quilter thing, right? That we love to do. Yeah, I know.
I like hiding stuff in things. So that's kind of I don't know. I like doing that.
Yeah.
I want you to have another reason to look at the quilt, one to go, oh, wait, what's this? Kind of thing.
I gave my aunt, who is going to be 104 this coming fall, I gave her a quilt a couple of years back now, before the pandemic started. And she was so thrilled because there was all these little farm things. Like she was pointing out the eggs and the chicks and all these fun little, there was little tractors, and she was, because she grew up on a farm, and of course she weren't her and her husband had a farm for a while, and it was, yeah, she just thought this was so cool that somebody had made her a quilt, never mind all the farm stuff, and she was very proud of it. I'm sure everybody in the home that where she was in got to see that quilt because she loved it so much. But
The rumor is that you get better care in a hospital if you have a quilt. That's the rumor.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Somebody wants to come in.
I think some friends of mine just made that up, but I think it's true. I'm going to say it's true. Like, if you have to go to the hospital, take a quilt, you'll get better care. Because people will be like, oh, she's got a really nice quilt. It's funny how people are attracted to quilts at
Yeah,
all levels.
that's right. That is, it's very true.
Yeah,
They see it and they don't see anything like it anywhere
right.
else, right? So they take a double take, right? At least so.
Especially if it's made, like not these mass produced quilts that you can get at, those are not those don't even count as quilts in my book.
No,
Like, those aren't, yeah, those don't count. So
but yeah, it's that. My thing though too is those, like the big box stores have
yeah,
fake quilts, I guess,
yeah,
and they're for like $40. So people think a quilt like this is going to be $40. It's like,
no,
no, you have to consider
you
that
can't
you're
buy the
really,
fabric for $40,
yeah, I know. I
let
know.
alone my time or
I
my skill set or my, no, no,
I
no.
priced out. Now your prices in the U.S. are different, but our prices here, because we're importing all the cotton goods and stuff like this, right? I priced out a quilt for a friend, uh, probably 7 or 8 years ago, and it was $663 just for the raw materials. And I told her, I said, at that price, you're learning how to do this, and you're going to come help me.
There,
Because I
yeah.
said, you know, are you sure you really want to spend that much on a quilt bedding for your bed, right? You know, because that was the other thing. If she didn't want to learn how to quilt, well, do you really need the quilt, right? And the prices now have gone up again. So it's like I actually dread to see how much a quilt is now. I don't do costing out very often because I'm like, but are the prices creeping up in the U.S. for cotton and threads and all this stuff?
We're about at $13 a yard, a little like 12 something a yard now. Where, when I started quilting 20 years ago, it was 6. So, that's kind of where that is. Of course, boutiques are higher,
Yeah,
hand dyes, of course, are higher. Now you can find less expensive fabric at some of the box stores. The quality is definitely different, and I think people just need to take that into account. I'm not against anyone using low quality fabric. I'm just letting them know it's not going to last as long. You're going to have more issues washing, that kind of stuff, because it'll
yeah,
shrink differently, those types of things. The colors may fade a little bit, where and higher quality quilt fabric, it goes through a finishing process that the lower quality does not. But that being said, like that quilt right there,
yeah.
that's all big box store, very inexpensive. But I thought it was a cool print. I did it in a small wall hanging that I knew wouldn't be washed or cared about. You know what I mean? It's not going to fall apart because I'm not going to wash it as much because it'll be a wall hanging kind of thing. I actually decided to make some smaller type quilts. It's got 3 of them over there just to kind of practice because I'm a long armor myself,
Right.
and just to practice my domestic a little bit more. Just, so I
Yes.
just made some small. I was playing with a ruler. I decided to make, I you can't see it. Let me grab it.
Okay.
See those little flying geese?
Oh wow. Okay.
So they're a half an inch by an inch.
A half an inch by an inch.
Yes.
Aye.
And
Aye.
so I was playing with a ruler and I just wanted to see how small I could make them. And I can make them pretty small. So this has all these little, and I took one of those mini charm packs, and that's what I used to make all the little flying geese around the quilt
Oh, very, very cool.
border. So it was just me playing. And then, so this is inexpensive $6 fabric at a big box store, but it's a cute print.
It is. I actually have that print in a different colorway.
Yeah. So, but it was just me like going, oh, that's cute. Now I know this is not gonna, be a heirloom that will last, 300 years. Who knows? Maybe it will. Um, but it's okay to use inexpensive fabric. And I know some people's budget can handle, what's at. We have a very expensive hobby.
Yes, we do.
And so I respect that there are different people at different levels that still want to learn. So you can still learn on less expensive fabric, and still get really nice prints
Yeah.
and still make really gorgeous, beautiful quilts. So just
There
take more care when you're washing them, is my only
there
suggestion.
are there are quilters, and there have been quilts that I've seen in the past where they've used polyester. Right? Those
Oh gosh,
quilts.
in 1970s,
Yeah.
absolutely. They would
And
use
I don't know if you remember Fortrell.
mm-mm.
The leisure suit, Fortrell.
Oh,
You
okay.
know, they had these women sewed their leisure suits, and they had all these scraps. And I've even seen Fortrell quilts. Those quilts are like a weighted blanket, and
Oh yeah, they're
you get
super
under them,
heavy.
and they're
And
super
they do
soft.
not breathe.
No,
They
they
do
don't.
not breathe.
They
I
don't.
actually bought a quilt top off of eBay once. This was years ago, and it's got Bionic Woman fabric in it from the 1970s with double knit polyester in the block. And there's some double knit polyester in the blocks too. I loved it. It's just a quilt top, so I didn't pay any much for it. But honestly, if you're looking from a historical quilt collector's perspective, those 1970s quilts, at least in the States, are pretty rare. The reason is we stopped quilting. That's right before we started quilting again.
Yeah.
So the 1980s is when you see the revival of quilts.
Yeah, because I mean, well, I remember too in the '70s there wasn't a big selection of cotton.
No.
You know, like I remember my mom going to the store and she had a choice of pale blue with the little flowers, or dark or medium blue with the little flowers, or dark blue with the little flowers, and yellow, and like there was like maybe
Yeah.
4 or 5 choices, and that was it. And she was like, "Wow."
Well, it wasn't until the 1980s, this is quilt history stuff, but it wasn't until the 1980s that we even had the capability of printing 18 different colors on the same fabric. So that's really when you started to see the explosion of all the kinds of prints that they were making and stuff. So that was then.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Lynn, I have had just an absolute blast with you today. It was so much fun. Now, you're a certified quilt appraiser, so what we're going to try and do is get another filming episode where you come in and talk about what to appraise and when to appraise, and and all this stuff, and what things are needed, like the basics.
Absolutely.
And we're going to do that here in a couple of weeks. I am just so looking forward to that one too.
Yes.
Maybe we'll have new stuff, and we'll both have been at the Stitch Marathon, and we can talk about what happened.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. How fun that was. So if they haven't joined it, join us. Join us.
Join us for the Stitch Marathon, July 22nd, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And what is it?
11 to 11 Eastern Standard Time.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So you got 12 hours of fun and giggling and quilting and just talking with other quilters around the world. So I'm
Right.
hoping we get lots of people from the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. That'll be fun too.
It'll be very fun.
Okay, we'll talk to you later. Okay, bye everybody. Have a great
Bye,
weekend.
everybody.